Dear Jurassic World, I have a question. There's no doubt in my mind that you earned all the success you got. You were a long-awaited entry in a franchise with one good movie and two with exponential diminishing returns in quality. At least I can see where you got it from. Regardless, you were the Jurassic movie for a new generation, being exactly what a reboot needed to be. A reminder to those nostalgic folks what a Jurassic movie is, while introducing fresh new ideas. Still, one thing has plagued me since I saw you all those years ago. My question is not about your story. As I mentioned, with you acting as something of a reboot, your job was to inject older audience members with some good old-fashioned nostalgia for the first film. And you certainly checked that box. Perhaps a bit too much in a few spots, but you never shied away from excess. In fact, that seemed to be a theme of yours. More and bigger action scenes, a lot of CGI, and a plethora of dinosaurs with, well, you put it best,
more teeth.
But I'd say that's justified as you were the fourth entry in this series. Okay, maybe not the CGI. For decades, the very use of CGI has been hotly debated by everyone, from filmmakers to critics to people with YouTube channels who totally know how the industry works.
Shut up.
But over the years, I've accepted it as no better or worse than practical effects. It's just a tool, just like all the others at the disposal of these artists. How much or how little they choose to utilize is up to them. However, with you hailing from a series that prided itself with its use of practical dinosaurs and having a grand total of 1, and how poignant that it's the one that has an on-screen death, it's clear where your priorities lied. I just hope all the artists were paid what they were owed. But what was your story? Then again, what's the story of any Jurassic movie?
Not my question, by the way.
On the surface, they're about dinosaurs. Dinosaurs eating people. But it's typically the why that follows that make these stories so compelling. Why did people bring dinosaurs back to life? Why do people believe this is a force of nature they can control? Why did they think putting these creatures in a theme park was a good idea? These questions were posed by the author of the novels from which the first two movies were adapted, Michael Crichton. A man who apparently had a lot of opinions about theme parks. No thanks to Disneyland.
Those pirates, man. They do things to people. Except eat them when the ride breaks down.
The Pirates of the Caribbean breaks down, the pirates don't eat the tourists.
See?
These all point to what is the central theme of the entire franchise. Mankind's hubris when trying to control forces they cannot begin to understand. Steven Spielberg made sure this was front and center in his film adaptations of these novels, and it's there in the slasher movie that is Jurassic Park 3, but I'll give credit where credit is due. You understand the importance of this theme too. Years after John Hammond passed away and ownership of the Engine Corporation changed hands, they gave the theme park another shot, and it was wildly successful, to the point where these attractions got corporate sponsorships.
Verizon Wireless presents the Indominus Rex.
Everything goes horribly wrong when the genetically engineered hybrid Indominus Rex escapes and forces the characters played by Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt, as well as a pack of trained raptors, to spring into action to stop it. Fortunately, they are characters that fans might remember. The awkwardly one-sided will they won't they breeding pair.
What's that? You wanted them to be Lex and Tim all grown up? Me too.
There's no doubt one of your biggest flaws was not bringing these characters back in some form. Lex, who probably would want to be as far away from dinosaurs as humanly possible, could easily run the park, adding an interesting depth to her development in the story. She could have also been the one to release the T-Rex using her skills as a elite hacksaw. Meanwhile, Tim, being as big a fanboy as he was for Dr. Grant, could have filled Owen's role perfectly, just without hitting on his sister because, ew. Plus, this would have added an interesting story dynamic. Two siblings with shared trauma coping with it in completely different ways. But outside of wishing characters were other characters, the rest of them fall incredibly flat. Like, most of them have no depth beyond their role descriptions. You have the well-meaning, albeit ignorant head of the company, who dies, the sleazy representative who wants to exploit the dinosaurs, who dies, and the seemingly passive do-nothing babysitter, who dies. Horribly. The ones who do live are two-dimensional at best. Owen's the cowboy with a golden heart. The kids bond over, ironically, a separation. Claire is the closest one to having a complete arc, which includes a thread of empowerment where she prefers to wear heels throughout the adventure, culminating in her being the one to lead the T-Rex into the climactic battle wearing them. But that arc is learning not to be so numbers-minded and prudish, and having kids is good, maybe?
You'll see when you have kids.
Yeah, if.
When? It's worth it.
Yeah, not the most progressive given the first movie's female lead.
Dinosaurs eat man. Woman inherits the earth.
We can discuss sexism and survival situations when I get back. You just take me through this step by step. I'm on channel 2.
But let's get back to the story. The fact that you share a lot in common with the first movie is no shock to anyone. It had been a while since the last film, and audiences needed a little shot of recapitulation, updated for the inclusion of any new story beats and characters for sure, and those here were aplenty. With the exception of B.D. Wong, not a single person from the original cast returned. New dinos are a bit of a given, and while the location is on the same island as the first, at least it's open. And then we have the new blood behind the camera as well. At the helm was Mr. Colin, I'm glad I wasn't the one to ruin Rise of Skywalker, Trevorrow, whose only directorial credit before you was Safety Not Guaranteed, a film about...
Never saw it.
Now, because you were the first Jurassic movie in 14 years and made $1.6 billion worldwide, a lot of criticism over Trevorrow was sidelined, overlooked, or swept under the rug, until... However, that did not mean he was absolutely free from criticism in regards to you. As he helped pen your screenplay, he was partially responsible for making Owen as unlikable as he was to his human counterparts, giving a glorified extra an overlong, dragged-out slaughtering, and a divorce subplot that realistically only affects two characters who aren't even the main characters. Yes, Claire is involved as the kids are her nephews, but this plot only exists to get these two to bond. So the whole thing is basically pointless and doesn't need to be in the movie.
Okay, you know how you know something to be true but you don't want to admit it, but if you don't admit it, you'd feel like a liar? I kind of appreciate the divorce subplot. Not for the exhilarating narrative it brings to the table, no, but more so what it means and my feelings about Colin Trevorrow as a creator.
Again, you were the first new Jurassic movie in 14 years, and the one prior, while having Laura Dern and Sam Neill, didn't feel like a Jurassic movie. No disrespect to Joe Johnston either. He did give us The Rocketeer and Jumanji. The man is also an effects guy, and Jurassic Park 3 has some of the best in the franchise. If anything, its biggest problem was not having a third book to act as a solid piece of source material. And yet, you did just fine without one either. Nor author, as Crichton passed away in 2008. But you did feel like one, and that's mostly because Colin did his homework. Because aside from being a sequel and mild reboot, you're also an adaptation. A soft adaptation, but an adaptation nonetheless. And as with any adaptation, you'd need some sources to pull from. Fortunately, you had the first film and the book. It's obvious Trevorrow had a clear goal with you, to reintroduce audiences to this franchise, and pulling from the first movie and novel was his best shot at doing so, and it was evident which things came from where. The head of engine getting murked comes from the book. This line specifically.
Nothing in Jurassic World is natural.
Then we have the divorce plot, and...
He had to leave early. He wants to be with his daughter. She's getting a divorce.
There's a 98% chance that y'all forgot about that line, or that even being the reason Lex and Tim were on the island in the first place, so you're welcome. It's also in the book, too. But even with such amazing attention to detail, there's still that one lingering issue. Look, when I first saw you back in 2015, I loved you. because you reminded me of when I was a kid seeing the first movie in the theater and how utterly obsessed I was with the franchise, to the point where I saw the third 3 times during its theatrical run. But after my first time with you, I had little drive to revisit you. Maybe your incredible finale, but that's about it. Because if you were going to remind me of the first movie, I'd rather just watch the first movie. Obviously, in light of this video, I have seen you again, and you're fine. You're no Jurassic Park, and it'll likely take a while for me to probably give you another watch, but you weren't quite as bad as I remembered. Muddled with plots, yes, but you're alright. Alas, though, we come to my question. Why, at an internationally visited theme park, are there no holiday decorations when you're clearly set during Christmas?
Have yourself a merry little Christmas.
Oh yeah, this has been a theme park episode this whole time. Surprise!
Thank you all so much for watching this video. A video that I have had kicking around the pipeline for, about 5 years. And I know this isn't the kind of content that I usually produce for the channel, but if you do want to see more, by all means, let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll make a video on how accurate, I don't know, Roller Coaster is. Y'all remember Roller Coaster? Of course, that is only but one way you can show your support. The other is over on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can see videos like this at least a day before it goes live on the channel, and see your name scroll by on screen and read aloud by me if you are a newcomer. I think we had a newcomer, but they... yeah. It's fine though. Of course, giving me $10 or more a month gains you access to the Cool Cats Club, which not only gets you all those lovely perks that I mentioned before, but an exclusive live stream at the end of the month for just Cool Cats members. And those members are Ashley Hines, Bennett Ballard, Danielle Garcia, David Gansel, Ian Cameron, Kooky Trails, Lisa Sturgis, Nicholas DePorto, Pander Plays, Tendo the Seal, Tony Goldmark, and Trevor Gumble. Any amount will do, you can cancel anytime. And you know what, it's the holidays. You're probably spending money anyway on your loved ones, friends. Apparently you can also gift subscriptions too, so hey, if you think this is a good enough gift, go for it. On top of that, I have all the socials in the description below. Some I use more than others. Once again, thank you so much for watching this video. I've decided I'm taking a little bit of a break in January, but I will be returning with more cool things in February, so do keep an eye out for that. And as always, Black Lives Matter, trans rights are human rights, stop AAPI hate, free Palestine, stay safe, stay healthy, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and happy holidays, kids. And I heard him exclaim as he left out of sight, bonus nachos to all, and to all a good night.